The first item is in the special meeting notice, the resolution directing the use of general funds to pay for the COVID-19 response measures. That is recommended by myself, Councilwoman Soria and Chavez as part of the COVID committee. That includes the mayor. So with that, is there a motion to approve this item?
Motion to approve.
Motion by member Chavez, second by member Soria. Let me go to the public. Any member of the public wishing to address this item? We have one, Lisa Flores.
Really quick, how much money are you guys looking at spending from the general fund, and in what areas do you think that you will be spending the money in? What are you guys projecting out until some more federal relief can come to us, hopefully in January? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And we'll be happy to update you that after the meeting, Lisa. So I'll make sure to call you with some details. Any other members of the public wishing to provide comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. If there's no discussion, I'll do a roll call.
Mike.
Member Carbasi?
You're on mute,
Yeah.
Councilmember.
We missed all that great opening, member
There
Carbasi.
you go. I was.
Before you start, member Carbasi, let me make sure we have the right people. City manager, I think we needed our controller, Tim Orman, and maybe the mayor if there's any questions. Go ahead, member.
I just wanted to talk about the need for this policy, and with the general fund, just get more feedback because we got this kind of late. I have a lot of trust in the committee, but can you give us some more background on what the implications are going to be financially for the city with this?
So I'm going to try and take a stab at summarizing it, but the good news is I have an attorney and a controller who can correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially what this item does, council members, is all the funds that we get under CARES Act, they said they currently have a deadline of December 30th. So either we spend it or we have to give it back. As you know, we extended contracts until early next year, February 28th. There's a lot of purchases for the fire department and police department internally that are still coming through and being delivered. So what this item would do is any of the resources in the CARES Act that are not expended by December 30th would essentially go into a general fund and would become general fund so that money can be spent and have to be given back. So I think I might have made that more confusing than needed to be, controller, or legal counsel, but you guys can correct me.
Did a good job, Council President.
Yeah. Thank you. So it's not gonna expend any general fund dollars now, council members. So our general funds are not impacted, but it would allow the money to go into the general fund to be expended for the purposes and the contracts that the council already agreed to.
And Councilmember Carbasi, just to elaborate a little bit of that, hopefully I don't confuse it as much as Council President did. Basically, it's just to keep the current services that we have going, continuing through the middle of the pandemic, with regards to contact tracing, to testing, to support services and things of that sort. That's really the reasoning behind it.
Got it. Thank you.
I could add on top of that, we're working in tandem with the Fresno County too, because the pandemic's not going to stop on December 30th. It's going to continue. This allows us to continue all the services that are necessary for our people. So I support it.
All right. If there's no other questions, we'll go to roll call, please.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Carbasi,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Caprielio,
Yes.
President Arias.
Yes. And let the record show that the mayor supports this. So if any of us go to jail, the mayor's coming with us.
You won't be mayor then. He'll be in vacation. So.
We'll be coming back.
He'll have the best attorney available.
All right. So most importantly, council, all kidding aside, the measure that we just approved also gives a level of relief to our controller that all the funds, will be, in the right category, in the right budget lines when and if we ever get audited by the Department of Treasury. So Mike, controller, you now have the ability to sleep better and you can release money as fast as possible.
No more excuses, Mike.
I'm sure I can find a few more, council member, just for you. I will. But thank you for this action. It's very helpful.
Controller. With that, council, we're going to move to the next item on the special meeting notice, approval of material terms of the amended lease with the Fresno Grizzlies Baseball Club, and authorize and direct the city attorney to complete the agreement and the city manager to execute the agreement consistent with the terms approved by the council. With this, council, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Is there a second? I know there might be some changes we have to consider.
Second.
I'll make a second, Council President, but I know that I
Yes.
want to just make some clarification.
Okay, so let me start off with mine, Councilwoman, if you would. So my motion is to approve with direction to staff to complete the operational agreement that would allow the non-baseball days to be immediately utilized by the city and the public within 60 days of action by, of approval of this item. Is there any other direction or clarifications that the council would like?
Council President,
consider?
I would like to just add to your motion that we exercise and that we don't just give authority to the administration, but that it is on the record that we will be reviewing for the purposes of knowing how financially the team is doing in terms of its agreement. So on an annual basis, as stated, and it's allowable.
So to be clear, Councilwoman, your direction is that the team get audited annually?
Yes.
By a third party.
All right, by the third party as outlined in the contract. All right, so we have a motion to approve with direction to complete the operational agreement within 60 days that allows the non-baseball days to be used by the city and the public. Direction that the agreement and the finances be audited annually by a third party as outlined in the contract. That is a motion for the public's understanding and the council. It's been seconded. Allow me to go to the public first, council, and then we'll come back for comments. Is there anybody in the public wishing to address this material changes to the lease agreement for Jachansi Stadium? See none, we'll bring it back to the council. Is there any comments from the council on this matter? Councilor Butterfield, you have the floor.
Yeah, I wanted to address a couple of things. Yeah, I was aware of the press conference yesterday, and there were some short-sighted criticisms that were made at the press conference that I feel like I need to address before we vote on this. And I will be supportive of this. Some of these criticisms that I heard yesterday were, frankly, some of the same short-sighted criticisms I heard 20 years ago, 10 years ago, but 20 years ago when we were looking to build the stadium. And I want to be very clear, I supported the building of the stadium and proud of it. I think it was the right decision. 20 years ago, that stadium where it is was dirt. The entire area was blighted, mass blight. We had a terrible self-image in Fresno 20 years ago. There was a lack of community pride. There was no economic development taking place in our downtown. Numerous attempts to bring professional baseball had failed before we came on the council. And the council that I served with at that time said enough was enough. There was an outcry to get professional baseball and to do it in a first-rate way. Now, who were the people that supported this? Well, it was former Supervisor Henry Perea, who I served with, had the proud honor of serving with, Supervisor Sal Quintero, Dan Ronquillo, they called them Downtown Dan, and Tom Boyajian. And we met with numerous economic and political challenges to get this accomplished. It wasn't easy. Some felt it should be a modest stadium, only people sitting on berms, on grass. Some people felt the stadium should be 6,000 seats, 8,000 seats. Some felt it shouldn't be built at all. Some felt it should only be built in North Fresno. And the majority of us felt it needed to be downtown. We needed to do something to stimulate the economic development downtown. We needed to do something for development, housing, to improve the civic pride. Let me be very clear. Building that stadium was never about ticket sales, never. It was about revitalizing, bringing back civic pride, stimulating development. Now, over the course of these past 20 years, we've had 400 to 500,000 people come to that stadium every year. That's 8 to 10 million people. We have 500,000 people in the city of Fresno. 8 to 10 million over the past 20 years. We sold out that stadium at least 5 times. We have 12,500 seats. We've had in one soccer game 16,284 fans. We had another one 16,125. Baseball had 14,000, 15,000, and 14,000. If we'd have built an 8,000 seat stadium, we needed 2 stadiums to fill it. We've had national recognition as a result of the Grizzlies. They won a World Series as a AAA team. We've had their National League team win 4 World Series. Chachansey has invested $1 million every year for the last 20 years in naming rights. We've had the best naming rights deal in all of baseball, and they're not fools. They believed in the economic development downtown. The stadium, frankly, has been a jewel in the downtown. It's been the #1 stadium in our country. It has been part of revitalizing and creating new homes, national recognition, and there's been a multiplier effect. Now, what's the multiplier effect? That's what we were doing. We were trying to get economic development, housing downtown, buildings that had been stagnant for decades to be built. I want to go through some of what's been done according to the Fresno County Economic Development Corporation. We've had a warehouse road that has been $13 million. The SBA building, $7.2 million in renovation. The fire department headquarters, 2.5. The district court, 130 million. Bitwise South Stadium, 7 million. By the way, Jake Sobral, who's the CEO of Bitwise, has said publicly he would never have brought his company downtown if not for the stadium. He's invested 7 million downtown. The Lighthouse for Children, 15 million. UCSF Fresno Center, 26 million. Santa Fe Depot, 10 million. The Metropolitan Museum, 28 million. Doubletree renovation, 7 million. The IRS Compliance Center, 35 million. Guaranty Building, 18 million. Civic Center Square, 30 million. T.W. Patterson Building, 2.5 million. Holiday Inn, 10 million. One Putt Broadcasting invested 2 million. The Grand 1401, 700,000. The Martirosian Law Firm, 3.5 million. Fulton Street, we invested 20 million. Everybody remember that? Heron Jaguar invested 10 million. The Cosmopolitan Restaurant, 3 million. That's hundreds of millions of dollars. A mixture of public and private dollars. Wouldn't have happened was a stimulus from the stadium. Let's talk briefly housing. We've had the Fulton Village as a result. This is all housing around the stadium. Fulton Village, 6.9 million. Vagabond Lofts, 10 million. Ironbird Lofts, 10 million. Broadway Loft, 4 million. City View, 11 million. The Brio on Broadway, 7.8 million. The Van Ness Cottages, 3.2. Bungalow Court, 1.2. Crichton Place, 6.0. 1612 Fulton, 5 million. The Lead, 13.5 million. This resulted in 459 housing units, families living downtown as a result of that stadium. $78.6 million invested. That's property taxes and sales taxes. Transactions between buildings that have been stagnant, that were dormant. Pacific Southwest Building purchased 2.4 million. The Grand, 5.2 million. The Bank of the West Building, 4 million. The Crocker Building, 3.7 million. Virginia Hotel, 3.25. The Rowell Building, $2 million purchased. And by the way, that was renovated for 25 million by the Cashins. The stadium has been a complete success. Everything we had hoped it would be. Housing, 500 units, refurbishing of old dilapidated buildings, civic pride, revitalization of downtown, entertainment for families, 8 to 10 million people. Public and private investment of hundreds of millions of dollars, increased property taxes and sales taxes into our general fund. Yeah, we should have built it, and Fresno citizens are better off because of it. Now, it's always easy to be a Monday morning quarterback 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years after the fact. It's much harder to get something accomplished. And trust me, all the decisions we have made over the last 2 years to 4 years or 12 years, they will be Monday morning quarterbacked 5 years from now and 10 years from now, and it will be easy to criticize. We should have built it. It needed to be a first-class, first-rate stadium. It is. It wasn't overbuilt. It wasn't overhyped. It was supported by people from the chamber to labor unions to the current mayor at that time, Mayor Autry, to the one who was running against him, Mayor Whitehurst. And it was the right thing to do. And I'm happy to support this. Unfortunately, Major League Baseball has a lot of power and obviously has done something now 20 years after the fact that it's never done 100 years before and taken our AAA team. I'm happy to support this. We're going to continue with baseball in our downtown, and Fresno's going to be better off for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember, for your comments. Councilmember Esparza?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I think Councilmember Bredefield summed it up all pretty well with a lot of great detail. But I think, taking a look back at the last couple weeks, we were all kind of caught off guard and thrown off our footing the day before Thanksgiving, and really want to commend this team and all the folks who were involved, right, for coming together and making this happen. I think it was clear, going into this issue, that the most important thing was to keep a team in the stadium. This has tremendous implications for downtown, the city at large. And again, unfortunately, Fresno was the casualty of this reorganization by Major League Baseball. But fortunately, again, I think with what we have here, we're going to keep a team and keep the door open, for future prospects as well. So I'll be happy to support this today. And again, just want to thank everyone who was involved in making this come together.
Thank you. Councilwoman Soria?
Thank you, Council President. My remarks will also be brief. I think a lot has been said by two other colleagues, and I don't disagree that, or I'll just say I agree that building the stadium was a good thing. I may disagree with the size of it, but I think it is what it is today. And what we need to do is what we're doing today is being leaders. And, it may not seem like for folks, because it is more money that we have to put out as a city. It's just a reminder of the fact that parks and amenities, entertainment amenities that we want in our community are going to require subsidy from our government. And that as we are moving forward in investing in neighborhoods and other places in a variety of our districts, that we remember that places like the stadium, like parks in our community, are not money makers directly. There are indirect effects that result as a result of our investments, as mentioned by Councilmember Bredefield, housing and other private investments that come in. So as we think about investments in our parks, in our neighborhoods, that's why we are calling for more parks in South Fresno, more parks in District 1, where we only have, very few, because we recognize that when we build amenities like the stadium, that it does, in fact, can attract private investment and good development in neighborhoods. And so I want to thank again, as Councilmember Esparza mentioned, everyone who stepped up to the plate to get this done. It wasn't easy. It is a tough vote, but I think that it's a necessary vote so that we can continue to move our city forward, and that we can continue to have an occupied stadium that is affiliated with the MLB. Thank you.
Councilmember Carbasi, then Chavez.
Thank you, Mr. President. So for the District 2 residents watching today, this is not a fun vote. This is the vote I'll probably like the least of my time here so far on the council. I don't want to sugarcoat this. Fresno taxpayers are subsidizing baseball in Fresno. Now, I think Fresno was better off having AAA baseball, but I think it's important people know that when it looks like when this stadium was built, the decision was made that we're doing this knowing we may not break even, because this is a way to stimulate downtown. Councilmember Bredefield mentioned some of the investment that's occurred. But for me, I don't want people to think because I'm going to support this that I'm automatically going to support the next thing that comes in and creates a debt for this city. I am very, very hesitant to cast a yes vote, but I'm going to do that today. But I do want to acknowledge that we pretty much we're in a rock and a hard place. It's probably impossible for us to have anticipated these moves by Major League Baseball. And they do have a great deal of leverage, but we have to be practical at the same time. And I want to thank a lot of folks who worked behind the scenes to gather all the information. Of course, the mayor was involved in that, but I want to thank Tim Orman. I want to thank City Attorney Doug Sloan. It's been a pretty intense couple of weeks, but I think given the fact that we have our backs against the wall, you probably worked out the best arrangement that we could possibly hope to get. And I just want to acknowledge that. It's just tough because as we move forward, I think we need to be very careful when we decide to take on more debt, especially if we didn't learn that in 2008 with the recession. Then we should learn it with the recession in 2020. Having reserves, having ability to bond out, and having, like with the animal shelter, and having a good financial position is really important. So moving forward, I'm going to be have even more scrutiny for these kinds of expenses. Thank you again for all your hard work, and let's keep baseball in Fresno and do it as fiscally responsibly as we can.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you. This isn't a very difficult vote for me. I don't live too far from downtown, and as many of you know, the city of Fresno has been going through its constant evolution of faces, and it's gone back and forth. And I agree with what Councilmember Bredefeld said in really quantifying the investments that have been made in downtown because of the amenities that we've invested there long term. And I think that's what was a big factor in my decision, where the city of Fresno is playing the long game. It was never intended to be a profitable venture, but I think it is, and here's why. I know we're focusing on the bond payment that taxpayers have to absolutely pay to the tune of $3 million, 3+. But what we're also not looking at is the multiplier economic effect of driving that much traffic downtown. I remember when that stadium was a parking lot, and I would go shopping there with my family. We'd go into Luftenberg's, we'd go into the Mammoth Mall or Gottschalk's, and it was that traffic that really filled up the coffers of the city of Fresno. So I think as we go down our next page in writing the city of Fresno's history, I think where we have an opportunity is in making sure that the public understands what this investment actually yields. The hundreds and thousands of people that come downtown and go and patronize our businesses down there, whether it's Los Panchos or Kakis or Modernist or Tioga now, that is money that is directly infused back into the city coffers. And I don't think we've done a really good job of quantifying what that economic impact looks like for the city of Fresno. And I think once we do that, we'll see that this has actually been a profitable venture because of that multiplying economic effect that we have on the heart of the city, which is really downtown Fresno. And I know there's some folks that have talked about that. I think that's something that we really should get serious about doing, whether it's working with our partners at EDC or another entity. They have the data of how much tax revenue those businesses generate down there. And I agree with what Councilmember Bredefeld said, but he missed one of the biggest, and I'm serious, one of the biggest events that the city of Fresno has hosted at Chukchansi Park. And that's because it was a very memorable moment for me, where I was the judge of the 9th annual Taco Throwdown, where I ate 20 tacos. Yes, 20. But that put Fresno on the map. We were on national news. And I think those are the types of events that we can capitalize on. We have that amenity there. We just haven't been able to maximize the usage in it. I mean, we were on national talk show hosts about our events that we're having down here. And I think as part of this next chapter of this renegotiation, we should really get serious about either allocating a position for somebody that can manage those events and attract those events, or look at contracting with a vendor that has those connections that can bring those types of amenities and entertainment opportunities for our folks, because when they're down there, They go and have a couple of beers at Tioga. They go and have a couple of drinks at Modernist, or go to Club One, or many of our businesses that we have there, which, by the way, are the majority of them. When corporate America decided to leave downtown Fresno, that's who filled the vacuum. A lot of our small business owners that are down there. And we should figure out ways of supporting them, not just with events like this, but with other events that we can capitalize on, utilizing what Fulton Street now looks like. And so with that, I'll just say it again, it's not a difficult decision for me because of the returns that the city will ultimately get, long term. It's like when you put a down payment on a car and, you finish paying it off in 5 years. And then after that, you have a little bit more flexibility of what you can do with that property. I think, future cohorts of council members and mayors will have an opportunity to write that chapter, but it'll be because of those investments that the city of Fresno made by the, generosity of their taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Let me try and finish it off with a couple of comments. I've said my piece in yesterday's press conference. And first, let me acknowledge that the developments that the council member referenced were not the direct result of just a stadium, but of former mayors and council members and private investors and people who decided to invest in Fresno. And as a council member who bought downtown 15 years ago, who lives, works, and plays in downtown, I can tell you that I didn't move to downtown because there was a $45 million stadium there and baseball. I moved there because there were sidewalks and good roads, and there was a park being built, and there was synergy, and there was young folks. So the same thing that North Fresno, Southeast, and Central Fresno, what people want is a neighborhood where there's plenty of offerings. You can work, you can live, you can socialize, you can go to dinner, you can go to a neighborhood park. My struggle in this whole conversation has been that we have failed in the past to be transparent and to be truthful, that this is an investment. And I would support those who've said it's a justified investment, that you got to go big to get big returns on investments. But when we had our budget hearing this last year, the second one of the year, and the council wanted to fund a community center for a district that doesn't have any, there was arguments made that we should not be using general funds at all for community centers or for parks. They should all go to hire more police officers. All the general funds should be going to police officers. And if it doesn't go to the police officers, it's being misappropriated and misused. And that's this false argument, because we know that without a team in Chichansi Stadium becomes the biggest and most expensive community center in the city's history. And in the past, we haven't taken advantage of the non-baseball days. That's why the provision's there for us to finish that operational agreement. To Councilmember Chavez's point, we ought to be having events there. It shouldn't just be a stadium where a couple thousand people play baseball on a given season. It should be more than that. And that's my struggle, is that too often folks use a justification that if it doesn't make money, you don't do it. The stadium has proven to cost us $45 million and just as much money on the operational subsidy. Now, if you think that's worth the return on investment, great. It has been a catalyst for downtown. It is an integral part of downtown. But if we're gonna credit the stadium with building a courthouse, then we should also credit it with building a high-speed rail station that some people think is a boondoggle. We should also credit it for, building, the small business next door. The fact is, everybody has been part of downtown revitalization. Councilman Bredefield has been there. I've seen him vote for downtown investments in my tenure here. He's a big champion of downtown. But just the way we're a champion for the baseball of Fresno, we ought to be champions for the park in West Fresno, the community center in Bodog Lane, the community center in Central Fresno. We ought to be doing that too, because In my district, I have 5 community centers, and they need about $20 million. If I was to bring that forward today, I would hear from some people, it's too much money. That's too much general fund money. It ought to go to police officers, because that's what we need. That's our number one priority as a city. And my point is this. I work, live, play, and own in downtown. The stadium is for baseball, for soccer, for concerts, for community events. I want us to reset expectations that a community center and a park and a baseball stadium make us money because they're providing a service to the public. And we shouldn't simply reframe some things as worthy of investment and other things as too costly for investment. So I'm going to be fully transparent with the public, because when the community in West Fresno comes to me and tells me the swimming pool hasn't been operational in 10 years, the roof is leaking on the community center, if the city can, why can't they fix the leaky roof? These are all real conversations, and they exist across the whole city. Potholes, I still have a dozen schools without sidewalks around them that we got addressed. So I just want us to be real about it. It's not to dismiss the investment of the stadium, because everybody has had a role in revitalizing downtown. It's just to remind us that we ought to use the same commitment for the rest of the city and the rest of the neighborhoods when it comes to basic investments. So with that, I hope that concludes it and we can do roll call.
Councilmember Bredefeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Esparza,
Aye.
Councilmember Karbasi,
Aye.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Council Vice President Caprielio,
Yes.
and President Arias.
Yes. Mayor, thank you again for your service. Myself, I think it was Chavez and Bredfield who are trying to, get this agreement in the best interest of the taxpayers. So thank you all for the work. Tim, Doug, Dan, everybody, MLB. It's been a tough 2 weeks, but we got this to the end point. So thank you all. And hopefully we'll see everybody in the next baseball season.
Add, Council President, I want to thank the council for stepping up. This was a really difficult decisions, and decisions we made are made in real time. Everybody's always second guessing down the road, but you guys did the right thing. I also want to thank the Baker family and their partners for sticking with the city of Fresno. And I think we made the right decision today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all.